In Allegheny County Court, a judge decided the two teens will go to trial after prosecutors shared new surveillance video they say places both of them outside the funeral service with weapons in their hands.
In Alderdice High School.
16-year-old Hezekiah Nixon. Nixon is charged as an adult in the August 7th shooting and is sitting in the Allegheny County Jail tonight. He is also charged in connection to the shooting that happened outside of a funeral home in Brighton Heights in October.
A detective says the gun Nixon is accused of throwing over the McKees Rocks Bridge in October was used in both the funeral shooting and the August 7th homicide.
Prosecutors showed new surveillance video in court today that they say proves a 16-year-old and 5 other people are responsible for a deadly shooting in the city of Pittsburgh.
21-year-olds Talasia Allen and Andre Allen, 26-year-old Andrew Johnson, 20-year-old Rayvon Polnitz, and 16-year-old Hezekiah Nixon all face charges related to the murder of 40-year-old Stephon Drayton. 2 other people were shot.
New details on a teenager facing charges in several Pittsburgh shootings. Hezekiah Nixon is charged with homicide for a killing in California Kirkbride back in August. Investigators say Nixon and 4 others were behind the shooting where 1 person died and 3 others were hurt. And
He shared all of this is a lot for his client to unpack as he awaits trial.
Individuals who did the shooting are covered in all black, dressed in all black, and they are unidentifiable. He's disappointed with the result. I think he was happy to see that there are a lot of holes in the Commonwealth's case. Grasping for straws. They established that firearm found at that location in October was somehow fired by my client back in August. And they couldn't establish the registered owner of the gun. They couldn't establish whether or not the gun was stolen. So again, they got a long way to go to try and piece the puzzle together, what actually took place and actually who killed that young man on August 7th. He's young, he's scared. I mean, he's in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. He's a lot of questions are running through his head. These are allegations that are very heavy, that carry a lot of weight. How they place these individuals at these locations, that's still up in the air.
Yo, what it is, people, we is back. Another day on Keep It G News. In this video, we going to slide all the way up to Pittsburgh, man. We're going to take a trip up I-70, depending on which way you coming from. Because I covered the story probably before most of y'all was following me. This was early on in my YouTube career. And it was about a funeral being shot up in Pittsburgh. And at the time, I didn't know no names because it was early on in the investigation. Y'all know I like doing updates. But what you're going to find out in this update is this shooting that happened at the funeral was just a pot boiling that led to this overflow in violence. You understand what I'm saying? Because it was also 2 shootings that happened before this. So before I continue, I want to send my condolences to everybody involved because there was a lot of people involved in this. You're talking about 4 murdered. A lot of them was innocent bystanders. Over 15 or almost 15 shot in these 3 shootings, and it's all caught on video. What y'all just watched was Hezekiah Nixon lawyers speaking on some of the charges, both of the cases. Because Hezekiah Nixon wasn't involved in the initial, confrontation, from my knowledge, that how this all started that led to the funeral shooting. But he was involved in 2 shootings after that. So it's a lot to talk about. It's a lot of video. So this one of your videos you got to watch from start to finish so you can understand where I'm at and where we going at with this story. So I gotta take y'all back maybe a year ago, 18 months ago, when I first caught wind of this story. And at the time, this is all I knew.
We now know the names of 2 teens charged in a shooting outside of a funeral that sent 6 people to the hospital. According to the criminal complaint, they are 19-year-old Sean Davis and 16-year-old Hezekiah Nixon. Both are facing several charges in relation to the shooting. Jessica Guay has the latest on the investigation.
While mourning the loss of John Horninez Jr., who was shot and killed earlier this month, Family and friends heard gunshots and dropped to the floor of Destiny of Faith Church in Pittsburgh's Brighton Heights neighborhood. 5 people were injured in Friday's shooting, and a 6th person was injured while running away. Just a few hours later, Pittsburgh police arrested 19-year-old Sean Davis, seen in this mugshot, and 16-year-old Hezekiah Nixon. The teens face charges of attempted homicide, criminal conspiracy, and aggravated assault.
We were standing in the vestibule, and when you turn around, you see the whole front of the church. And you see these people running with these weapons, shooting at other young men.
George Moses, a church trustee, is thankful to be alive.
Fortunately for me, a young woman who I don't know her name pushed me out the way. I fell on the ground.
Court documents detail how surveillance video shows 2 males walking towards the church holding guns with extended magazines. The criminal complaint says one of the suspects could be seen firing shots towards the front of the church, and the other suspect fired multiple shots at one of the victims on the sidewalk and chased the victim while firing a gun. The complaint says a horse that was used to pull a carriage holding a casket appeared to be struck by gunfire. The horse was hit by multiple bullet fragments. The shooting lasted for less than a minute. Then the 2 shooters were seen on video running from the scene. According to the criminal complaint, police determined the suspects ran to a Hyundai Elantra, and they identified the license plate on surveillance video. Just before 6 p.m. Friday, police stopped Nixon and Davis in the vehicle on the McKees Rocks Bridge.
You got 2 in custody.
In court documents, it says Nixon ran from the vehicle and threw a firearm into the river, and Davis dropped a gun on the roadway.
See if we can get any kind of divers here. We're going to need this weapon.
Now, more than ever, community members are wondering what it will take to stop the violence.
I just think these young boys don't care about anybody's life, not even their own.
I saw this young man shooting with something that I saw in Vietnam or something. How is that possible in the streets of Pittsburgh that a young person can get access to a weapon like that?
I'm gonna keep it all the way real. I think most people is trying to figure out where these guns coming from. Now, I did a story a while back, right? And I talked about the influx of guns in the community. And in this article I read, they blamed it on the fact that during the pandemic, a lot of people fired up. A lot of people strapped up and brought firearms. And then once inflation hit, a lot of them firearms hit the streets. Now, if you ask me, I think it's a little bit deeper than that, but that could be at least part of the reason. But this is how I caught on to that story, y'all. And at the time, I only seen the video from inside of the funeral. But you want to watch this, a video outside of the funeral. The chaos was all caught in 4K. But Hezekiah Nixon turned out to be one of the suspects. I'm just going to highlight him, yo, because the other kid, the other 19-year-old kid, he wasn't involved in a lot of these shootings. That was just one isolated incident that he was involved in. He was the older kid, and it happens when you're dealing with manipulation, especially when you got kids raising kids. This happens all too often when you got a 16-year-old hanging with 20-year-olds. A lot of times this 16-year-old is gonna feel like they gotta go above and beyond to fit in with the crew, and a lot of times they may have to. But we gotta understand that crime doesn't pay. It only leads to pain, sorrow, and prison time. You understand what I'm saying? But John Hornzies was murdered at a gas station. And before I take you to that scene at the gas station, it was another shooting that happened before this where ultimately ended with 6 people being arrested and 5 people shot. But I want to show y'all how this shooting took place, because it's like nowadays these kids think they in like a Grand Theft Auto movie or something. Just watch this. Because I remember a time when, we used to run the streets. It wasn't this many guns. Y'all might be 1 or 2 of us strapped, and we got to hold everybody down. But what you're going to watch in these clips I'm ready to play for y'all next is everybody was strapped. Everybody was shooting. And in this next incident, they was actually shooting from both sides of the street like they tried to block them in. Check it out.
A prosecutor with the district attorney's office played video from multiple cameras. This particular angle shows several people firing shots on Brighton Place on the north side on August 7th. Another one shows other people shooting from a different car. In court, testimony from Pittsburgh police detectives revealed 58 spent shell casings were collected, which came from at least 8 different firearms.
That's why I say these guys is moving like they're in a Grand Theft Auto video game or some type of Western movie. Because if y'all see how that was constructed, I thought that they probably thought that sounded like a great idea. But you got one shooter shooting before they even hop out the car. Riding down the street, one kid jumps up, runs out the car, he's shooting backwards. Then on the other side of the street, you got a whole nother car shooting from a whole block away. And guess what happened, y'all? Of course, what normally happens. An innocent man was murdered. 40 years old man was murdered. And y'all know I'm not good with names, so I'm not going to say names. I'm only going to use Hezekiah Nixon. But 3 others was wounded. And that's what happens so often, yo. It's like, yo, we is putting trauma on top of trauma on our people. Because the shooter facing trauma as well. But he's also putting trauma on the people that's enduring these instances, you know, the victims. And it's like, yo, we just transferring it with no regard for anything. Like, we don't really understand that, yo, it's going to come a time when those shootings and those experiences that you faced in the streets are going to affect you. You know, it was a time, yo, in my life where I used to wake up and I used to hear gunshots, like while I was asleep. And I couldn't understand for years why I was doing that, you know, until I looked into it and there was something called, I forgot what it was called, man, but y'all can look it up, man. It was crazy, but it was scary as well. I'm talking about times I used to get up and look out the window, like, yo, what the fuck, why, man, gunshots? But it's all in my head, it's all in my imagination, it's not real. And that's just some of the things, you know, not to mention once you get arrested, and now you faced with these murder charges, the nightmares that you have. Yo, I used to have nightmares of catching life in prison. You know, I'm talking about vivid dreams that I never have on the streets. It seemed like when you in prison, those dreams are magnified. You know, it's amplified. It feels so real that sometimes I wake up in sweats. Like, yo, what is going on? Just to feel some type of calm that, no, I'm still in jail and I'm still fighting. And what kind of sense is that? You know, to be happy that you still in jail, you didn't catch life in prison. But this is what happens when you involve yourself in the streets. It's ruthless, and it takes a toll on you. But that shoot is what led to the death of John Horzines at the gas station.
That killed 3 people will stand trial.
Chris Hoffman was in court today and has the video the DA put into evidence.
Today in court, we saw video of the alleged shooting. The DA says this puts Troutman as well as Pegues at the scene and shows their intent. Several camera angles from Cedar Avenue and Presley Street show the lead up to the shooting and the shooting itself. The DA says the situation starts with Jaylon Hines, who is also charged in the shooting, walking towards Troutman and Pegues at the Sunoco on Cedar Avenue. Police testimony says Troutman showed what looked like a gun to Hines. Then it's at this point the video shows the SUV, allegedly with Pegues and Troutman inside, leave, and then gunfire starts. The public defenders argued that Troutman and Pegues don't fire first. You can see a flash from the left, and then they allegedly shoot. The shots are almost at the same time. Another angle from the nearby park shows another shooter firing at Troutman and Pegues. Video shows the shooting continue as the SUV turns on Presley. Victims Avra and Mihalik get caught in that crossfire. As they head into the Giant Eagle parking lot, there are more flashes, which police believe to be gunfire. The attorneys for Troutman and Pegues argued they were trying to get away from the gunfire as they turned into that parking lot. Both men still face several charges but had their homicide charges dismissed, as autopsy reports say where they were standing doesn't match bullet trajectory. Families of the victims were in court but did not comment. Both Troutman and Pegues have a formal arraignment set for February 22nd.
Now, that shooting at the gas station didn't just claim the life of John Horzines. It was also 2 innocent women murdered as well. A 33-year-old woman and a 59-year-old woman. Like I said, I'm not good with names, so I ain't even going to attempt to butcher them. But once they went to court, those 2 shooters, the homicide charges was dropped on those 2 shooters. Because, come to find out, John Horzines fired first. Even though they still stuck with aggravated manslaughter and all those type of charges, plus trust and believe they're still going to go to prison if they're found guilty and catch a lot of time for this. But this is just another brazen act that we see so often with our youth. And I'm talking about 25 and under. You know, they still young to me. You know, this is what we're saying from them. You know, shooting, no kid don't care who's around. don't care where at, you know, it's on site. And I get it when beef come to that level. That's why I say we got to get better at calming that beef before it get to that level. Because once it get to that level, it's just a landslide. There's no stopping it. It's just going to be body after body, murder after murder. And that's what you're going to find out in this video. It was all gang related. Now, I didn't get into the crew names, you know, I ain't really into that, you know, the police can do their job. But I just want to show y'all how a series of events can lead to so much disaster, so much pain, so much hurt inflicted on everybody involved. But that's what led to the shooting that you're ready to see next. And this is how I caught on to the story, where it was a funeral that was being shot up mid proceedings. You know, I'm talking about why they're giving their eulogy or whatever they was giving. This was going on the outside.
Shots ring out, sending folks scrambling outside Destiny of Faith Church in Brighton Heights. That's what you see on surveillance video from that day last October, as a family was saying their last goodbyes to a loved one. The events caught on camera during the funeral, played in a courtroom Friday afternoon. Prosecutors say teens Hezekiah Nixon and Sean Davis are first seen dressed in all black outside a restaurant across the street from the church. For about 20 to 30 minutes, the two people appear to survey the area. And at one point, you see one holding a handgun and another hiding something under their clothes. Eventually, they cross the street and open fire. Both of them shoot at the crowd outside the church. Then one of them chases after a victim while still firing their weapon. In one part of the frame, you can see horses used to pull a carriage holding a casket get scared. According to court records, one was hit by multiple bullet fragments. You then see a woman who was struck limping towards the church to take cover. And seconds later, one of the people dressed in black runs away, followed by the other. According to the Allegheny County District Attorney's Office, 23 shots were fired outside the church that day. One victim hit 13 times. In total, 5 people were shot, and a 6th was hurt as people ran from the scene. Police testified Nixon and Davis took off in a Hyundai near the shooting. They traced the car to an address in McKees Rocks and saw the two come out of the house at that address before stopping them on the McKees Rocks Bridge. Attorneys for both Nixon and Davis say you cannot tell who the shooters are in the video. Casey White is representing Nixon.
I don't never want to make it seem like I'm this big bad gangster, because that's never the case. You know, I've done things and I've had things done to me. But I just be trying to make these videos and give my experiences on these type of situations to let people know that, yo, you can change, you know. You can go from that to this, you know, where you're not really in it to harm your own people, because there's no winning this. Nobody wins. It's just losers and people that lose more than others. You understand what I'm saying? And for this 16-year-old kid to be involved in these 2 brazen shootings at the age of 16, that says a lot about the community that we living in and what we teaching our kids and what we're allowing from our youth. And then so often we just get so fast and quick to throw them away without providing any real help, any real substance. And that's how it normally goes. And this was a situation that y'all gonna find in this next clip was gang related. I'm sure you probably can see by now, but so many lives was hurt, so many people was injured, and all it leads to is death. You know, by way of the graveyard and by way of prison. That's why I say there is no winners. It's just losers with less scars than others. But I didn't know this at the time of the story. You know, when I originally did the story, I didn't know. I mean, I kind of had an idea, because whenever you have a situation where it's a funeral being shot up, you know it got to be some type of hatred or something that led to this. But you don't never put people that's innocent in these type of situations, because though y'all alright, they had to beef with these guys, you know. This dude was already dead. He rested in peace. Let the family mourn. But to come there and inflict more pain and more harm and more trauma on the rest of the citizens or the rest of the innocent people that just was loved ones of this person is insane. And I wish that somehow, some way, yo, we can find a way to resolve these problems, yo, way before we get to this, because once we get to this, I'm going to keep saying it, because this is the reality of it. There's no stopping it. It normally leads to arrest and indictments. And at the time, I thought it was isolated. But in this next clip, y'all gonna find out it was gang related.
The Allegheny County District Attorney's Office says a gang war unfolded on the streets of Pittsburgh. They say retaliation was the motive behind a shooting outside of a Northside funeral last year. That was the scene that day. Channel 11's Nicole Ford, the only reporter in court today, as prosecutors laid out the terrifying details.
Surveillance videos from all angles played out in court. They're major pieces of evidence in Hezekiah Nixon's two cases that the DA's office calls a gang war playing out on the streets.
The homicide case that occurred on Brighton Place, as well as the funeral home shooting that occurred up in the north side as well.
Nixon, just 16 years old at the time of both shootings. That's why his attorney, Casey White, argued in juvenile court today that this case should be moved out of adult court. The only witness he put on the stand, Nixon's mom.
He had some missteps as a youth, but ultimately he was a well-behaved individual that abided by the rules of the home and, hung out with his brothers and sisters and had two loving parents at home.
But that's not the story prosecutors paint. During Nixon's time in the Allegheny County Jail, he's received 4 misconduct reports. One detective testified new criminal charges are pending after Nixon broke the bones of a corrections officer. The Commonwealth spent the better part of 4 hours showing multiple videos of the crimes Nixon is alleged to have committed, including the murder of 40-year-old Stavon Drayton on Brighton Place just months before the funeral shooting. Plus, detectives say Nixon is this shooter, firing into the funeral service. The Commonwealth describing the shootings as one retaliation after another in that gang war. But White says the evidence isn't there to prove that's actually his client. Since this is the first time a family court judge has conducted this type of decertification hearing instead of an adult court judge, he's hopeful the ruling will go in his client's favor.
Every day they make a determination of what's in the best interest of the child.
The judge is going to take time to review all of the testimony and evidence presented today. She says she will have a decision in the morning on February 22nd.
Now again, I want to send my condolences to everybody involved in this case. I know I didn't say names because I'm tired of butchering them. I just stuck to one name because that's who I knew originally, Hezekiah Nixon. And I hope these guys even still get a fair trial, because y'all know I'm not really into people being railroaded, because to me it only happens to us. But it's just sad to see that so many lives was affected in this, yo. You talking about none of these guys over 26. All juveniles for the most part, young, 25, 21, 22, 16, 17, 19. Like, damn. And now you got a situation where 7 people going to prison. I think about 7. 4 is dead. Multiple wounded. We talking about a situation where almost 20 people was infected personally. Not even mention the families, man. Like, this is crazy, yo. But this is the trauma that we see in our communities, and this is how it normally happens, and this is how it normally ends. That's why it's always best, yo, to never even involve yourself in street activity, yo, because it can get out of hand. And once it get out of hand, can't nobody stop it. Can't nobody stop it. Even once arrest is made, you still gonna have other people on whichever side that's gonna feel a type of way. And one day they might wake up and feel like sliding. And they gonna suffer the same fate that we seen with this situation, because it always gets you one way or another. It can be a situation where you get away with a crime, and 15 years down the line, you get jammed up on something else totally unrelated, and you wondering why you was doing everything the correct way. You're not even living that same way no more. But karma come back to bite you. But let me know how y'all feel about us in the comments. Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel, become members of the channel if you can. This is a story of a Pittsburgh gang war that everybody lost in. And I want to know how y'all feel about us in the comments. Another day, Keep It G News.
Nigga can't do what I do, y'all niggas can't copy me. Let's keep shit G. Let's keep shit G. Let's keep the shit G. Let's keep shit G. Let's keep shit G.